Hello YouTube, this is a little bit of an unboxing and an update on the Ham Shack combination type video. First up we have this package which arrived in the mail today, and this came through a tip from joernone, who got a tip from Brendan. Brendan is Joe, or really John, joernone channel on YouTube. John from Arkansas, his friend Brendan is his mentor on electronics and radios, and Brendan is a very knowledgeable guy who I think probably is like an electrical engineer or something. If he's not, he's very knowledgeable. He's not on YouTube that I'm aware of with a channel other than he watches videos. Brendan, that is. Brendan suggested to John he get this. John posted a video on YouTube on his channel. In a mishmash video, this was one of the items. And it was apparently a lot of these, lot L as in L-O-T, not a lot, but lot. A bunch of them that were sold from eBay seller that got them from a school. I don't know if it was a college or whatever. You know, schools have multiples of items like these that they have for the students to use in various classes. At least they used to back in the day. A lot of schools have eliminated, a lot of regular high schools have eliminated like industrial arts programs, although I know in our local school, high school, it's now part of what used to be BOCES, which is now Questar, where they have auto mechanics, machining, machine shop, you know, this kind of stuff, electronics that kids can take as a vocational type course. When I was a kid in the 70s, I took industrial arts, like probably a lot of you fellas that are a little older. And you would learn wood, metal making, wood shop. So this item was, sorry for the camera work, I was trying to get this open. This thing is a Decade Resistor Box, which is the same one John bought. And as they had, the seller had a bunch of them he was selling. They were $19 on his buy it now, and if you offered the guy $15, he would take. It was an automatic thing; you would get $15 plus shipping. It's got a little smiley face on it. Maybe one of the kids drew that on it in shop class. No date. Tested by number 726SM. It's an LP 452. Now these come in different resistance values. This one goes up to 1,000,000 and down to 10K. I'm going to want to buy the next two down. There's another one. This guy wasn't selling them in a lot, but there's another one you can get that runs from like 1,000K or 1,000 resistance up to 10K. And then there's another one you can get that's 0 to 1,000 or 0 to 100, I forget. If you get like 3 or 4 of these, you can end up covering all the resistance values from like 0 to 1,000,000. This is the upper one. This goes from 10K to 1,000,000. And just by turning these knobs, you have combinations of the two. So for instance, if we went here to 5K and there to 50, you should have a resistance value of 550K. And with that in mind, I'm going to see how accurate this thing is with my digital meter, just out of curiosity. These things probably date from the 70s or 80s, I don't know. I have a couple capacitor ones too. They made them for capacitors as well as resistors. So the components in them are older. and they may not be perfect. They may have drifted from value. This is a Cornell Doublier, which is an excellent brand of resistor and capacitor maker. So let's see. Not bad. 557 for 550. Let's try going to 60. 567. So it's about 7 off. That's 70, so that's 8 off, 8,000. That's fairly consistent. That's 580. Let's drop this one to 0 and drop this one to 10K. We're going to start at the bottom. So there's what's inside these. I don't have this one open, but it's just a whole bunch of precision resistors. That's not bad. That's the 10K one. It's pretty good. 20. There's a whole bunch of resistors in there, and you're simply putting them in and out of the circuit with the knobs. That's 20. 30. A little more off. 40 is good. 50. 50 spot on. 60. Very good. 70. 80. So the whole point with these things is you take your wires, your leads, you hook them to this box, you put them into a circuit that you're working on or testing, and you can change the resistance value in a circuit of a radio or whatever it is you happen to be working on, and try different values. This is 100K, 110. This should be a 100 and no, this should be 200K. I have it on 100 and 100, which combined would be 200K. Let me try putting this one to 0 and this one to 200K. Let's see what that does. 200.18, 201.8, and now let's go with them both on 100 again. I'm curious. That's actually more accurate. So probably, and I don't know what's in here, there's probably a 100K resistor on here and a 100K resistor on here, and you're putting them in series. And when you flip it to the 2 here and put this one to 0, you're probably just putting on a single 200K resistor that's hooked to this one. So it's probably a different resistor. But overall, this thing's very accurate. I got to be happy with that. So thank you for that tip, John. I'm going to set that aside and move on here. This is a continuation of a road trip I took with my son. I didn't get a lot of video of it. The video that I have is actually of an antique show that we ran into on the way home on this road trip, and this is what follows. Madison Buckville Antique Week. This is the map. Here we are just on the back of one lot of this huge sale. This thing goes on and on and on. Both sides of the road, multiple tents. These are the tents where we just came out onto the road. They're on both sides of the road, and they go all the way down, and there's a village down there, and there's more tents on the other side of the village. This goes on and on. You know, so sampling of some signs. Joshua likes the signs. Say hello, Josh. It's hard to give a good concept of how big this place is, but there's a bunch of old cars over there, buildings. The tents stretch on and on back there. I don't even know where we are now, because we're on the other side of the road, way back off the main road, and everywhere you turn there's just more and more antiques. 400 dealers, and that looks like a Tucker.
It does.
It does. Yeah, I think that is a Tucker. We're going to have to go look at that. Is that an Etzel behind it? I think it is. We'll be back. Just a little update. That was not a Tucker. It was a Studebaker. From a distance, it looked like it had the metal light bulb headlight.
Seats are down.
Is this an ambulance? No, it's a
All
wagon.
the seats are down.
Cool wagon. Sorry for the close-ups. It's a Nomad. Chevrolet Nomad. These are both Biscaynes. Very nice. I wasn't sure where we were. This is the billboard for this place. Madison Buckville Bigfield Antique Show. MadisonBuckvilleBigfield.com. And then they also do some kind of grass drag nationals for snowmobiles. This place is massive. Lots of fun. I'm going to have to be coming back here again. Joshua has just pointed out to me at the corner of this, it says 600 horsepower outlaw sleds, 140 miles per hour. He says that's ridiculous. I've driven snowmobiles years ago. Fastest I ever went is about 60. That is fast.
That's grass too.
But this is where we are. It's oh, it's supposed to be $7 to get in here? Oh, on Saturday and Sunday. Friday and Saturday. We're here free on Thursday. I don't know where the admission gate would be. This house to get this. I know a lot of guys will make YouTube videos and they'll videotape inside people's houses and making videos. I'm not comfortable saying to somebody, hey, do you mind if I videotape you and put you on your YouTube channel? Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just tend to be not comfortable asking people stuff like that. Would feel embarrassed or a little bit strange about asking somebody that. So I didn't ask this guy if I could videotape him or inside his house. But we did a road trip, my son and I, Josh, and we went down to Syracuse, over to Syracuse. We're in Albany. Syracuse is about 2.5 hour drive from here, about 150 miles, halfway to Buffalo, right in the middle of New York State. This guy lived in a little town just south of Syracuse. This is the venerable, let me get some light, TS-520. And if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I have one of these that I ruined. I was recapping it, and I have some videos of my recapping posted on YouTube. And I never finished the series because within the midst of recapping that, I put one of the capacitors backwards on the driver board, shorted it, took it to ground, shorted out the power supply, burned up some resistors, burned up the transmit section of the radio, and it no longer functioned. I took out the resistors that I burned out, replaced them, the receiver came back to life. I've never been able to get the transmitter to work again. I've tried testing it, I've tried doing a little bit of signal tracing. I suspect there's a bad transistor in it somewhere that I burned up. I haven't figured it out. This guy here, Gary, and I haven't asked his permission. I'm not going to say his last name or his call sign. He is a ham radio operator. Gary was offering his radio free to a good home because he kind of was downsizing. He does mainly CW and he does QRP, and he didn't want this big radio anymore. He bought this brand new in 1976 from a dealer in Long Island, is what he told me. He drove down to Long Island and purchased this back in 1976. He's had used it for years. He said he's mainly used it at a lower power than not full power because he runs a lot of QRP. Does a lot of Morse code, mainly. Actually, he didn't own a mic. He was 100% Morse code, CW operator. I am learning Morse code. I'm not there yet. I have everything else for this, as you probably maybe have seen on my station videos. I have the mic. I have the tuner, an AT200, which is a matching tuner for it. I don't have it out, but I have it in a box. I have the matching speaker for this radio, although it has a built-in radio speaker, but it's a small little like 3-inch speaker that's simply underneath there and screwed to the lid. My external speaker is like a 6-inch. It sounds a lot better. He says this thing is working perfectly. It's very clean. It's very clean inside and out. I've looked inside it. It's got a couple modifications, which I'll probably share later on when I get this thing powered up. there's a WWV button on these, and what you would do with the WWV button is you would push this in, and it would automatically tune your radio to WWV, and you could get the time, and if you know what WWV is, it's time and frequency monitoring. I think this put you at 10. There's 10, 15, 20, 25, I forget the frequencies, kilohertz frequencies for it. Tuned you to it automatically. Then you could use the 0 beat feature on here to set you could set your dial to the proper frequency, because this dial is movable, and you would set your dial to the proper frequency. There's no digital readout on it, and calibrate it. You would calibrate your frequency to it, and then you would turn it off, and then you would operate your radio normally, and this would be calibrated to WWV. That's no longer in there. He took it out and he put in an attenuator on the input on the radio. He thinks it's 15 dB, although he wasn't sure if it was 10 or 15. He thinks it's 10 though. It puts 10 decibels of attenuation on your received signal to get rid of interference and birdies that he was receiving on his radio. The IMD, that's intermodulation degradation products that you get whenever you're on a radio transmitting. You get these birdies or harmonic type signals that are close to your signal but not right on it. And he was picking those up on like 40 meters, 80 meters. So when you push this in, it attenuates your received signal by 15 dB, and he said it quieted that noise, and it made the receiver sound better. So that'll be something to experiment with, see how it sounds. And the other mod, there's an old mod you could do on these radios that a lot of people knew about. This is a channel selector. You could put a chip in this radio, and you could have pre-selected frequencies, up to 4 of them. And then, you know, if you had a favorite frequency, you would turn this to channel 1, 2, or 3, or 4, and it would automatically tune your radio to whatever channel that was. This is no longer a channel selector. It's wired to the filters. This radio has 2 filters in it. It has a single sideband filter, and I don't know the width of it. It might be 2500K. 2005, yeah, 2500. That's I'm not sure. And there's a CW filter, which is 500K wide, and this turns them on and off. You can flip them in and out of the circuit, because normally if you've put this on a CW here, it automatically would put the filter in at 500K. If you didn't want that filter in, you could turn it off with this switch. That's all that does. You can turn your filter on and off while still having it on CW. Something to that effect. I've never used one with that modification in it. He put it in it, and I'll give that a try. So I'm going to get this thing wired into the station, set up with the speaker and the tuner, and I'll be firing it up and making a separate video of this thing running. He also included the original manual, the cords. There's an AC cord, because this has an AC regular cord, and then it also has a battery cord. There's a transverter built into the back of this radio. You can use this on a 12-volt battery, and there's a cord for that. And then these are just a couple extra fuses and components and that came with the radio. So thank you, Gary. I won't divulge your name or call sign on here, since I didn't ask your permission to, but I thank you very much for this radio. It's found a good home. I'm definitely going to use it. It's going to be my main station radio. I have my TS-100 that I may have had on other videos. My IC7100 with his D-Star, and it does all the HF bands. That's the power supply underneath. This is the main box unit. That's a mobile HF radio. And I'm trying to get my son to get licensed, and I told him if he gets licensed, this radio's his. I'm going to give it to him. And I'm going to use Kenwood as my station radio. that's all for today. Thanks for watching. So I'm not going to post any more videos of me recapping the old Kenwood. It's fried. I'm actually going to make it a parts radio now, part it out, and this will be my new one. This is Tom. I'm editing this little clip into my other video. I decided to pull the cover on it, and I'll show everybody the inside and how clean this radio is. This is the bottom, and you'll notice I mentioned the WWV button, which is right here. This is the little resistor network. Try to focus that Gary put in there. Right here you can see all these resistors together. Did put the 15 dB of attenuation in there. My only concern, well, the case is, he's got some solder right there, which could ground to the case. I suppose it's in far enough. But the radio is very clean inside, extremely nice condition, well taken care of. He mentioned the high voltage caps. There's a couple high voltage caps in different circuits on here. That's one there, which is related to the input. These here are the bottoms of the high voltage transmission caps. I think these would be more your filter caps over here. So those are underneath a shield on the other side, and then these are the caps on the power board. This is, of course, the bottom of your transformer, your power transformer, and that's the board. These two green caps, resistors rather, here and here, are the ones that I fried on the other one. These protect the radio almost like a fuse. If you short something or overload something, these will burn out easily. Some people consider these undervalued. They've replaced them with higher valued resistors. The guys that are very familiar with this radio and offer advice on the Kenwood hybrid mailing list on Yahoo rather, say that they believe that Kenwood purposely put those resistors in of those values so they would burn out and protect the radio. So if you short something, you will not fry other key components in here, and they will burn up. And they did burn up on the other one, and the receiver quit working when I switched that capacitor backwards. I replaced those resistors and the receiver came back to life, but the transmitter, of course, did not. Something else was burned up in the transmit part of that radio. Here's the front of it, top of it rather, I should say. And again, very clean. The inside of mine that I had bought off eBay was rather rusted in this part of the radio. This chain was rusted. These air variable capacitors were a bit rusted on mine. These are perfectly clean. Obviously this was inside his house the whole time he owned it. And I thought, I took the screws off already. I'm going to take the high voltage thing off and look at the finals. And I believe they're original factory finals, because he said he always ran this at low power and it should have good output. And I'm trying to see, it looks really, and look how clean it is in there, very nice. I'd probably have to pull one of the tubes to read it. The original tubes were Japanese, and they were an S something. I don't remember the exact name of the tube. What replaces them is an RCA or other brand 6146. Yes, these are original. They're Japanese made S200 1A Matsushudia, or however you say that. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. These were the tubes that came with the radio in 1976. He says they're good and he's still been using them for quite some time. I'll use them, see how much power I get out on them on transmit, and I do have a couple of RCA brand new old stock 61446 tubes, which I could put in here at a later date if I need to. I bought those for the other radio and never used them because I was still working on the other one when I burned it up. I never had the opportunity to use the new ones. So that's nice to see. We have the original output tubes, original everything, other than those two modifications I mentioned. And we have a very clean, well cared for radio. And I'm honored, humbled, and appreciative to Gary for donating this to me for free. His only thing is he wanted it to go to a real ham that was licensed, and he wanted to make sure it was not going to be turned into a CB. Which I don't blame him, because I'm not even going to say what it was, but there was a modification you could do on these for 11 meters on the 10 meter band to turn it into an 11 meter band and use this as a CB high-powered transceiver. And that's an unfortunate thing that people did to these. This one is original, bought from a ham radio operator, used by a ham radio operator with low hours, low power, and in wonderful condition. So I'll be glad to have this on the air as my main rig in the near future. Thank you for watching, and this is Tom. A side note, you'll notice there's some foam double-sided tape in here with the plastic cover still on it that's being used as single-side tape. That is what goes over the resistors so they won't be coming in contact with the metal case. I mentioned how it looked like the solder was pretty close to the case. He was not unaware of that, apparently, and he did make provision for it, so I thought I'd mention that. Finally, this is a picture of the radio setup in the ham shack with the matching tuner, speaker, microphone. Dummy load is the tin can up there. It's an oil-filled dummy load. In the future, I'll have some videos of it on the air, and it's working well. And thank you again to Gary, who donated it. Much appreciated. 73, this is Tom.